Hi everyone. Today we're going to discuss the 1993 cold case of 9-year-old Angie Housman. She was last seen getting off of her school bus on November 18, 1993, and did not make it home. It was just a few short blocks. As you can see on the yellow circle on the right-hand side of your screen, that is her bus stop, and the yellow circle in the middle of your screen is her home. It normally was just 5 or 10 minute walk, and she didn't make it home that day. 9 days later, her body would be found at Bush Wildlife Reserve that you can see pictured here. In the last few months, there's been some developments in her case, and they're looking to reopen it. They've sent DNA to Quantico, and now advocates for her case are working closely with celebrity genealogist C.C. Moore. Here we're going to some updated news footage from November of 2018 and February 2019.
It was a time of terror for St. Louisans. In the early 90s, several children went missing across the area. Many were found, some were not.
Now, 25 years after one of those little children was found murdered, the I-Team's PJ Rendau uncovers new information that could breathe new life into this cold case.
First time I seen the little girl, she jumped up on my lap and says, "Hey, Daddy." It's like, whoa, should I be a dad or not? Boom, I became dad.
Decades later, Ron Bone is still a proud dad.
So that's the way she looked when she went and got her picture taken.
Showing off pictures of his little girl, a girl who will never age, a girl who never made it home.
Well, she got off the school bus. She had 4 more to go to make it in the house, and she never made it.
It was November 1993. 9-year-old Angie Housman vanishes from a quiet St. Anne street. For 9 days, Angie's family, local police, even the FBI search everywhere. Then hunters make a gruesome discovery at the Bush Wildlife Preserve.
It was cold, cloudy, just a dreary day.
Lieutenant Ed Copeland was first on the scene 25 years ago.
Saw a young child's body laying in the woods. It was very shocking, yes. I pretty much knew who it was.
Angie had been beaten, starved, and tortured for several days.
Cases like this, there's no way you forget this. I've never forgotten Angie Housman.
Medical examiner Dr. Mary Case conducted Angie's autopsy.
She had no clothing on her body. She had been kind of tied to a tree. She had very wide duct tape that went around her head that covered up her mouth, except her nose was exposed. And under that duct tape, there was a pair of panties kind of over her mouth.
Despite what she may have gone through, Case says it was the cold that killed the little girl.
I'm sure that whole experience was a horrifying experience. She's taken out, and hooked up to a tree and has no clothing. It's very cold and she can't see what's going on. So, yes, of course she was suffering.
The details of what she went through are shocking. The I-Team got our hands on a copy of Angie's autopsy report. It's a document that's never been released to the public. It not only reveals gory details about her injuries, but also sheds light on the killer's state of mind. Dr. Case found 2 cuts to Angie's wrists, one deep enough to cut a tendon, and then a larger one across her thigh.
Whether they were trying to kill her and then decided to do something else, I don't know the answer to that.
In '93, KSDK was inside the lab as analysts uncovered clues from evidence gathered at the crime scene. One of those clues, a single fingerprint lifted from duct tape found on Angie's body.
It's documented. It's compared to everybody that we come into contact with.
To this day?
To this day, yes, ma'am.
In 1993, investigators collected more than 150 pieces of evidence. Back then, that sole fingerprint was the best evidence they had to go on. 25 years later, DNA technology could reveal more information than ever before and unmask Angie's killer. St. Charles County Prosecutor Tim Lomar is counting on that.
So we're in the process, still ongoing, of DNA testing some of those items of evidence in hopes that we can find something that prior testing wouldn't have shown.
So does that mean DNA was found?
If the DNA wasn't found, we'd be a lot more discouraged than we are.
Sources outside of the prosecutor's office tell the I-Team evidence from the case is being processed right now in the FBI lab in Quantico, Virginia. Long shot or glimmer of hope? Angie's mother, Diane, passed away 2 years ago from cancer, never knowing who killed Angie. Ron Bone hopes he lives long enough to see his little girl's killer brought to justice.
I mean, it's gone too long. They need to solve it, get it, you know, have Angie resting in her peace instead of where she's at. I mean, she's not actually resting peacefully right now, I don't think.
For the I-Team, PJ Randhawa, 5 on your side.
An update on a 25-year-old murder case that the I-Team looked into last night at 10. Now investigators are hoping cold, hard cash could help them close the case. We're talking about the horrific murder of 9-year-old Angie Housman from St. Anne. Yesterday marked 25 years since she was found tied to a tree in the Bush Wildlife area. She'd been missing for 9 days. Investigators say there's now a $250,000 reward for information in the case, that money put up by an anonymous donor. There will also be a candlelight vigil to keep Angie's memory alive on Saturday at 7 p.m. at Booter Elementary School in St. Anne. If you have any information on the murder, call Crimestoppers, 1-866-371-TIPS. It's a case that's haunted us in St. Louis for 25 years. Who killed 9-year-old Angie Housman? Jenna Barnes found out Angie's advocates believe a celebrity genealogist famous for solving cold cases could find the answer.
She was taken on November 18th.
When Trisha Trout isn't working, she's investigating the Angie Housman case.
Obsessive. Thousands of hours.
She's not a detective or a lawyer.
I'm a mother, and I have a daughter relatively the same age as Angie.
Angie was 9 years old when someone kidnapped and tortured her, leaving her to die in the Bush Wildlife area in St. Charles County. That was in 1993. Police still haven't found her killer.
I feel 25 years is just way too long for this little girl to receive justice. She died in a horrific manner.
That's why Trisha started a petition this week to ask the governor to bring in a different type of investigator she believes could help solve the case.
We have C.C. Moore, who is willing to help for free.
C.C. Moore is a genetic genealogist.
I suspect we will be able to put dozens of cold cases to rest.
She uses DNA tests and family trees to find suspects, the same technique used to catch the Golden State Killer. And since then, it's led to suspects in dozens of other cases.
CC started talking to us about a year ago.
Trisha's hopeful public support and signatures,
so far we are at 335,
will lead to a new set of eyes on Angie's case.
She deserves justice, and that's why I do this.
I talked to St. Charles County prosecuting attorney Tim Lomar on the phone today. He told me they are still actively investigating this case, and he said, Ann, when it comes to DNA, they're doing everything they can with the technology they have.
And so much more technology now, of course, than 25 years ago. And there is that one fingerprint that they luckily got out there in the Bush Wildlife Reserve. But I remember being a kid, and anybody that lived in St. Louis at that time, it haunted you. It was terrifying. And she was just, 4 houses away from getting home off that school bus.
It has gripped our community, and it still does to this day. They're just hoping